Hey, good afternoon, Liberty North AP Psych. This is virtual Wednesday, January 27th. So this is video 2, just previewing your journal critique number 2 outline assignment, which is due March 31st. Okay, so first thing you need to do is, after the video, is access Canvas and go to the journal critique module, and you'll find everything you need under journal critique number 2. Okay, so I'm also going to take a picture of this outline and send it, back it up, and send it via Twitter today, so you can kind of see the notes of what we talked about, since it's a snow day. So again, I hope most of you are getting some rest and can watch this video later and just enjoy your snow day. Kind of taking the fun of snow days away with all the virtual stuff. So I know a good lazy snow day is always good. So I hope you're enjoying that. Okay. All right. So number 1, make sure you, again, access journal critique number 2 assignment on Canvas under the journal critique module. Okay. You'll have everything that you need there, every resource that you need to successfully complete the second part, which again is basically going back, number 1, going back and revise journal critique number 1, anything that you missed points on. And if you got anything less than 100, then you have some revisions that you need to make. If you got 100 on it, it's good to go. So, and then step 2 is, once it's good to go and the critique part is perfected, then you're going to put it into APA format and perfect that, and then you'll turn it in. So the expectation with journal critique number 2 is that it is a pretty perfected paper. The information is perfected, and then it's in the APA format when you turn it in. Okay, for the final on March 31st. Okay, all right. Also, make sure that you just go back and check grammar, spelling, sentence structure, and definitely look for contradictions in the critique. So those are things that, especially if you got like a 98, 96, 94 out of 100, a lot of times that was a grammar issue. So just go back and don't only read your writing, but read everybody's writing so that, it flows. And then also make sure you look for contradictions. So again, each of you has to write in each section. So, which you lost points if you didn't do that. So if you need to go back and make sure that you contribute to each section. Okay. So actually you lose points individually if you don't contribute to each section. So, but make sure then that there aren't any contradictions in a section. So, for example, if it's, in the method section, if one student says that it's quantitative, and then one student turns right around and says it's qualitative, one of you are wrong. So, make sure that it's consistent in your language and in your answers. Okay. So just make sure you don't have any direct contradictions, because you'll lose points for those. Okay. All right. And again, you can turn in your revisions, drafts to me up through March 31st. Okay. If you want me to check the format. But again, I have an example paper on the module of 100% paper, perfected paper. Then I also have, the link to Purdue OWL. Google has a resource that'll put it into APA for you. So hopefully you'll be able to do that pretty easy. Okay. All right. Now I'm just gonna go down real quickly. The journal critique number 2 assignment, and just kind of talk about areas as you go back and revise journal critique number 1 that you might want to specifically look at, where a lot of people lost some points. So I'm getting on Canvas, and then I'm going to the journal critique module, and I'm clicking on journal critique number 2. Okay. All right. So obviously your title page. So start with that. So again, make sure when you go back to APA format that you look at how to format your title page correctly, but you need to have a running header with a page number on the top of each page. And then you need to have the name of the article, the name of the journal, the research institution, so the college or university, and then the authors. And then down at the bottom, the names of everybody in your group color-coded. Okay, so the name of the article might be The Study of Sleep and Dreams, and then the journal is the Journal of Sleep Science or whatever, and then institution is Stanford University or whatever. Okay, but you should be able to find all those on your journal, and usually they're at the bottom or at the top of the journal where they kind of cite themselves. Okay, all right. Page 2 is the abstract only. All right, so this is supposed to be a very short section in which you're just summarizing and introducing your research. Okay, so again, you only have to talk about a few things. So just make sure you specifically address those things. Okay, so the research question, the theory, all right, the hypothesis, what was it? And then was it proven? Okay, which is your findings, the results. And then you need to identify if everything in the research was operationally defined based on your conclusions. Okay, was everything defined? Was everything, did they supply their good roadmap for research? Okay. All right, then the start of page 3 is kind of the body of the paper. Okay, so remember that's the method section. And in the method section, again, you need to identify the research method used, okay, which can be more than one. But in this case, there's definitely a control group, right? And there's definitely a placebo group. So that's going to put it into the experiment side, right? Okay, and then the next thing you need to identify, is it qualitative or quantitative? Okay, and anytime I have a control group, anytime it's an experiment, it's always quantitative. Okay, so make sure you get that in there and explain. What was the relationship or cause and effect being studied? Okay, make sure you identify that. Detailed summary of the procedure. So right here, I know some people lost points because it was very short. Again, it doesn't have to be long, but you need to make sure that you cover every aspect, every step of the research. Okay, so make sure you kind of walk through that. Okay, and the specific page numbers in the book that did that. Okay. And then information on the subject. So again, every demographic or every pertinent information on the subjects that is provided, you need to include, because that's who the research applies to. Okay, so that's all in that method section. So go back and look at that. External validity, most all groups did really well. The only thing on this one is a lot of you did not talk about random assignment. So again, the first step was random selection and assignment used. Again, selection and assignment are different. So make sure you talk about both. All right, so random selection is how did they get their subjects? And random assignment is then how did they divide them into groups? So both of those things happen and occurred. So you need to talk about both of them. Okay. Was there a representative sample, which is generally no? Just explain why. Can the results be applied to the general population? Again, the general answer is no. And then who do the results specifically apply to? Again, that really narrow area, demographics based on my subjects. And overall, was EV high or low? Support, explain. And you should come to the conclusion that the external validity is low in this study. Okay, and explain. All right, internal validity, which a lot of groups lost some points here. Okay, so the first thing with internal validity is nothing about external validity should be in your internal validity section. Okay, so nothing about the subjects, nothing about random assignment or selection, or it applying to the population, all that should not be there. You're going to lose points if that's in the internal validity section. Okay, so internal validity is all about the method. So in this case, an experiment. Was the experiment done well? What were glaring weaknesses? Were there some strengths? Has it been replicated? By who? Did they get the same results? Those are the things that we're looking for. Okay, so you're going to look at this experimental method that they used and see if there was any major problems or issues there. Okay, so the practice effect should come up. And then number 2, all research steps. Was everything operationally defined and laid out? Was the roadmap provided? Which I think in this case is yes. All right. Can the research be easily replicated? Yes, it's been replicated a lot. Previous studies done. So there were previous studies done, and they are cited in the book and in the pages. So make sure you go through and find those and identify those. Is the research reliable? Okay. Now here you need to make sure you explain. The original research done in 1993 was not reliable, but the replications that have followed are turning out to be reliable, right? Because they all get the same results. Are the measurement scales, materials used reliable? In other words, have they been used before in previous studies to measure the same things? Okay, and then overall, was IV high or low? Okay, and in this case, I think you should come to the conclusion that internal validity is high. Okay, just make sure you explain. All right, then discussion. Make sure, again, is your opinion. But each person needs to contribute to the discussion and write like their own little section. So strengths and weaknesses of the research, and then whether you liked what you liked and what you did not like about the research. Okay. All right. And then you're going to end with your reference page. Just make sure you check the APA format so that you put that in the right form. Okay. And again, you're only writing down the journal that was done by Kenneth Steele. Okay. All right. Then on Canvas, I've got the AP Psych Journal Critique. assignment grade check notes. Okay, so you can go down there and look and check yourself with each grade. It's kind of the rubric or the things that you need to really make sure that you follow with format and information. Okay. And then I have APA notes. So again, there's a link to Purdue OWL. You can use Google, and then I have some notes just for formatting that you might want to look at, just to be reminders. And then of course, you have the example paper that you can look at online as well. Okay. All right. So again, this is 100 points. It's due March 31st. Okay. Okay. So, you do not have to be in the same groups, but you need to use kind of the same research. So again, here's the outline. I'll send a pic on Twitter. Okay. And again, you can give it to me anytime, as many times as you want up to March 31st, and I'll revise it and give it back to you. So you can obviously share it with me. And just make sure you reserve the doc, or you open the doc for me to look at. And then, also make sure each of you are writing in every section. And then also make sure that, I lost my train of thought there. Okay. All right. So everything you should need should be under that journal critique number 2 and journal critique number 1. If you want to go back and look at that, it's kind of the same information. Number 1 is more specific about the critique. And number 2 is more specific about the APA format. Okay. All right. So again, March 31st. So you've got a little over 2 months. So make sure that you get going on that. And some of you, it's going to take 15 minutes because you got 100 out of 100 on the first one, and you pretty much put it in APA format. Just go back and check and make sure your format is correct. Make sure the spacing is correct, and all that stuff. And then again, it's going to be graded on a perfected paper. Okay. So, you need to make sure you go back and spend time with part 1, and then part 2, make sure you're using a resource for the APA format. Okay. And then of course, if you have any questions, you can email me the rest of the day, probably up till 3 o'clock. I'll be on Zoom as well with the open classroom. So just pop in and ask a question if you need anything. Okay. And then of course, enjoy the day, get some rest, enjoy just the slower pace. And then we will see everybody Thursday and Friday. Okay. If you need anything, just let me know.